first, you have your image. You need this extra space up here. Okay, turn it over. So I drew mine with a Sharpie. You are probably not going to be able to see yours as well through the paper. What you want to do is use the side of your pencil and just color over the whole thing. The darker, the better. And if you can see your image through the other side, save yourself some time and only do this shading over the lines that you want to trace onto your plate. Okay. Okay, so that's probably dark enough. After you do that, you're going to take your plate and you're going to put this on top of it. And you're going to make sure it's on your plate where you want it. You see how I have these little tick marks? That's so I can measure it up. And then I have this whole long extra piece. You want to cut that off so it is a little bit shorter, about that much, so you can see. And you might want to like check on the other side too. And then you just take this and fold it back, and you put a piece of tape on it so it stays while you're tracing it. Okay. Alright, so there we have it. So then all you do is take your pencil again and you trace it, and you kind of have to press kind of hard. And you just go all the way around the whole thing. And again, you kind of have to press pretty hard for that to show on the other side. And I can, since I have it taped, I can check. So you see how my image is on there. Alright? But I know that I only want these black lines. I don't want the whole thing to be black. So I'm going to trace on the inside of the tree also. Okay, and then these lines. Okay, and I can check. All right, that looks like how I want it. The next thing you're going to do is with the Sharpie, you are going to color in everything that you want to leave black. Okay, so if I look at my drawing here, even though it's brown ink, everything that is dark, I want to be dark in my final image when I print it. Okay, so I'm going to use my Sharpie and I'm going to color in everything that I want to remain dark, which means that you are not going to cut that away. And you'll understand that better when I show you the next step. And some of you have some designs with some really thin lines. It's going to be easier for you if you make those lines a lot thicker. So now that I have it like this, I don't really need this anymore on here, but you can leave it on there if you want. Okay, so the next step is to cut it. This is the tool you're going to use. It's called a lino cutter. Okay, this blade right here is extremely sharp. It will cut you badly. So you need to make sure that you follow these directions very carefully. So when you are cutting, you never want to have your hand right in front, because if you do this, it's going to take a chunk right out of it. A chunk the same size as that. All right? So you can imagine how much that would hurt and what kind of hospital bill your parents will have. You need to not do that. You always want to put this hand here and this hand over it when you cut. So you're always cutting away from you. You all are going to start with a number 2. You may not be able to see that here. You will have your choice of 3 different sizes of blades, but you're all going to start with a number 2. So I'm going to hold my plate with one hand and I'm going to cut with the other. And you kind of have to do like a rocking motion. So you kind of gouge in and then push. You see how it has that little line that comes up? Gouge in and push. So I want you to notice how I'm pushing away from my hand. Now, if I want to go a different direction, I'm not going to go like this. I'm going to turn my plate to go that other direction. And see, that doesn't even work for me because I want to go that way. So again, my hand is here, and I'm going to push away. Push away. Push away. Okay. And you're going to keep going until you have cut away everything that you want. Okay, so here I want to stop right there because I want that to remain black. And I don't think I cut. Notice how I am still moving the plate so I can continue to cut around my hand, or away from my hand, not into my hand. All right. And sometimes it's kind of like a puzzle to figure out which way to turn your plate so you know where to put your hand so you don't cut it. And this stuff is kind of hard. You kind of have to dig into it, but you don't have to like gouge it. You're not trying to go through to China. You're just trying to get a good line out of it. Okay. So I've got most of my tree traced around. And if you get little pieces in there like that, you can just tap them out. Don't try and take it out with your hand because it's a sharp blade. Okay. So if you want to see where you're at, you get another piece of paper and you put it right on top. And you can use the side of your pencil, or you can get a crayon. So to see where you're at, you get a crayon and you lay it on its side and you push away. Okay? And that kind of gives me an idea of where I've already cut. Okay, so there's what I have so far. So obviously I have not cut this part yet. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to turn it over because that gives me a better angle so that I can keep my hand behind my blade. So, and then like when you want to stop, just stop, and you could just kind of turn your blade like that and it'll just kind of break that off. And if it gets stuck in there, you can use your pencil and just kind of flip it out of there. So I'm going to do my star now. Again, I want my star to stay black, so I'm just going to cut around it. See how there's that little flip? Don't worry about it, because it'll come off when you make this next cut. See how it just came off? And if you have them collecting in there, it really doesn't matter. It's not really going to get in your way. Just can't see it, so you just kind of have to go like that. Alright, so get my little rug here, go around that. Curves are kind of hard. You can keep your blade in there and just like keep turning it. So I'm going to do another rubbing of it. So instead of getting a whole new piece, I'm just going to turn this one over, put it back on here, and do a rubbing of it so I can see what it looks like. Okay, so if I was going to stop and print this right now, it would look just like this. Okay, it would have these white lines and everything else would be black because we have black ink. But what I want, but I don't want the whole background to be black. So I'm going to change my blade. Actually, you're going to come to Mrs. Raw to get a blade change. Okay, now I have a bigger blade. There's a number 3 on there. And if you notice, it's got a different shape. It's a little bit wider. Again, with this one, you always want to cut away from your hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this background out. One thing that you can do that's really to make it really interesting is you can make all your cuts go the same way, or you could make them go different ways, and it will give you different effects. So I think I'm going to make all of mine go straight out like this. So you can see how this goes a little bit faster. It takes bigger chunks. You see how the chunks are bigger? So I'm just starting at that line I already made and just going out. And you don't even really, you don't have to get every little bit out, and I'll show you in a minute when I do my little rubbing to see where I'm at. So there's that little corner. I want that little corner out. You might have to tip your plate a little bit. I'm going to turn it this way so I can get in that little corner. Then I'm going to turn it back because I want all my lines to still go that way. You notice how I am cutting away from myself. I am not cutting towards my hand. I'm turning the plate instead of my hand. So these edges are the hardest part because you'll want to slip like I did. It's hard to get a hold of it. Alright, so I'm just going to do a rubbing of this right now. Oh, so all these little filings, I don't want you guys to just push them on the floor. Just push them to the center of your table and we'll brush them all off at one time into the trash. Okay, so here's my piece of paper and my crayon, and I'm going to do a rubbing. When you're doing a rubbing, it's important to hold your paper nice and tight so you get a better image, a true image. Okay, so you can see how right here is where I carved out. It's easier to see my tree, and on this side I didn't carve out. So I'm going to continue carving to get all the way around this side, and I'm also going to carve on the inside of my tree. And just to make it go quicker, we're going to do this in high speed. Okay, so I'm going to do one last rubbing to make sure I've got everything cut that I want to get cut, and if not, I'll tweak it a little bit or do a few more cuts. Let's see if I like how it looks. I think that looks pretty good. So this is your plate. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. And I will show you the next step in our next installment. I do not expect you to get all this done in one class period, but you'll get a good start on it.
Okay.
So in the end, this will look like that. And that will be your little print.